So, I'm back, and I thought it's a good time, now that we're post-Master Toronto and post-Teo nerfs, and we have kind of some semblance of what the new meta is going to be, to do a meta tier list for the agents, to talk about where the agents are right now. Now, looking at the group as a whole, I would say that personally, even though we nerfed Teo, which was necessary, I still say slightly we are still in the utilities, maybe just a little bit too good on the whole. And we're going to start with Astra, who I think Astra is a good example of, like, kind of the perfect level of balance for an agent, to be honest. I'm going to put Astra in the B tier. These are our tiers, you know, S down to help me here. Now, ranked is kind of its own special category. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I'm going to put Astra in the B tier. Next up, we got Brim. For agents like Brim, and we'll come to Chamber in a second as well, you know, they fulfill a niche, right? And I think for these agents that fulfill a niche, I'm going to put in the C tier. Breach is a bit of a different story, though, of course, because Breach, if you've watched this channel for a long time, you'll know that Breach's win rate is historically very, very low. Finally feels like people are catching up to that, right? Finally, it feels like anyone who's playing Breach on certain maps isn't doing so well, right? And finally, we're getting to that point where maybe people have caught up to that. Now, again, historically, statistically, you would say that Breach actually should be in Help Me, but I don't think that that is the case. I think I'm going to put Breach in C tier. Chamber. As I say, like Brimstone, I think I'm going to put him right next to him. Okay, Clove. Clove is obviously going to be our first ranked agent. So these are the agents that, you know, in ranked, they're good. And in, you know, higher level pro play, they're just not. Cypher. Now, Cypher, I think, obviously is pretty good. It is good across a wide variety of maps. I don't think Cypher is quite S tier, but I do think he's pretty high A tier. I think Cypher is a pretty useful agent. And I think, honestly, going alongside him, I mean, I know that the pick rate isn't there for Deadlock just yet, but I really do think that Deadlock is being underplayed right now. I really think that Deadlock is an agent that you can, if you have some good ideas, you can find a lot of value from Deadlock on both the attack and defending sides. But I'm a Deadlock believer. I think that Gravnet for every 40 seconds is just kind of very strong. Fade. You should always remind me whenever I'm doing these tier lists, like, never put a recon initiator below A tier. Overall, Sova might be slightly better still, although that's quite close. Gecko. Now again, a lot of you will probably have Gecko in the B tier. And we actually went a decent amount of time during the Teo meta, of course, without seeing really any Gecko. Gecko, I would suspect, you know, now that Icebox and Bind particularly are back in the map pool, I would expect we're going to see a bit more Gecko. I, again, still think that Gecko is pretty strong. I'm a Gecko believer, and this is my tier list, so I'm going to put them where I want. Harbor. He still is in the Help Me. I still don't understand why they have not just simply gone, hey, why don't we, you know, just remove the slow on the walls for teammates, or make the wall longer. But whatever. Harbor is going in the Help Me. ISO. Now, if we're talking about the highest levels, again, ISO, I think, is an agent that obviously we have seen a decent amount across a few maps, and I think has uses overall. I think he's a bit more universal than an agent like Chamber, and so I think I'm actually going to put ISO in the kind of B tier. Probably will end up low B tier. Jet as well. I think Jet is just kind of your quintessential B tier agent. KO. I mean, KO is still useful, though. I'm going to put KO, I think, towards the top of the B tier. I still think he has uses, but I think KO suffers somewhat the same as Breach. Maybe not quite as bad as Breach, but I think one thing that we overrate with agents like Breach and KO is that at the top level, pro players just turn their flashes all the time. You know, like, it is actually quite rare to see someone get fully flashed by these unless it's like a perfect flash. Now, with KO, that's much easier to do with Breach, to have a perfect flash, and that is why I think KO is significantly better than Breach. Not just that, but that's one of the reasons why. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Breach, historically, his win rate at the top level is so low, is because essentially you have two abilities that seem like they do something, and they don't. Killjoy. Now, Killjoy, we talked about the Sentinel class being a bit interesting earlier on, and I think that Killjoy is just a little bit worse than like the Cypher or Vice that we'll come to in a second. You know, still usable, still probably B tier overall, you know, not bad. Neon. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? The journey that we've been on with Neon, because obviously when the Neon buff came in, it was like, what the hell is this? What the hell is going on? Then the nerfs came into Neon, and everyone's like, oh, okay, Neon's probably back to, you know, not being so great. But actually, Neon really has survived that nerf pretty well. Right, it seems like once people got to learn how to actually play Neon, it was like, oh, this agent's actually pretty sick. I don't think Neon is quite S tier, but I think Neon is definitely, you know, A tier. Omen. Obviously, Omen is coming off one of the highest pick rates of all time. I made a whole video about Omen, talking about the problem of Omen and the fact that Omen has an answer to everything and doesn't have a single weakness. And I think if you don't have a single weakness, you have to go in S tier. Phoenix. Well, with the recent Phoenix changes where they nerfed his flash, as I made a video about that as well, Riot gave up on Phoenix and just made him a ranked agent. Now, Raze historically has basically always been one of the top duelists, and I think there are a couple duelists right now that are ahead of Raze overall. I still think that Raze is useful. I actually still think that Raze is probably an A tier agent, to be honest. I still think playing Raze is a good idea a lot of the time. Reyna coming into the rank category as well. I suppose Reyna and Clove are probably a bit better for rank than Phoenix, so they can go a bit higher. Sage. Sage. Where to put Sage? You know, I think that we've seen, obviously most notably on Icebox, but maybe in some other cases as well, Sage still can get value and still can get some surprise value. And so I think it belongs alongside the Chambers and Brims of the world, where niche, yes, but still value to be had some there. Skye. Well, when it comes to Skye and Teo, and maybe I should just do both of these together, I personally, and particularly with Skye, Teo still has the advantage of his drone is better than Skye's. I think Skye is in the help me. What is the niche for Skye? Particularly if Yoru exists in his current state, why would it ever make sense to play Skye? Skye can double up as both the Flash and Recon Initiator, right? That's why you play Skye. But when Yoru can kind of double up as your duelist and flashes, then there is no place for you in the game. Again, with Teo, at least you can argue like, hey, he does something a bit different. His drone is also better than Skye's. Like, there is at least some argument. I'm going to put Teo here, but Skye, I really don't think there is a case. Sova. Again, we're just going to put Sova right next to Fade. Recon Initiators are just pretty good. Okay, Viper. Now, we've come full circle. We've come full circle, where Viper was the second most picked agent at Masters Toronto. And I'm still expecting the new map Corrode to be a Viper map. Bind is back, which obviously historically is a Viper map. I'm still expecting Viper's pick rate to be extremely high. And I think, again, it feels like we're on a bit of a wave of momentum of people realizing, like, hold on, we're playing Viper on Sunset. We might start to see more people playing Viper on Haven as well. I think we finally come back around to the fact that Viper, even after all of those nerfs, is still a very strong agent. Because fundamentally what Viper does cannot be repeated by anyone else. The way the fuel works and the way how big the wall is, it's just a very unique agent that is just very, very useful. So Viper is still S tier. Vice. I think before they did the slight nerf to Vice, I probably would have put Vice in S tier. I think with the slight nerf, maybe Vice is coming down to A tier. Waylay. Now, here the thing again, similar to Skye, right? When I'm talking about Skye and being like, what is your position in the game? Even though they just buffed Waylay, you know, I looked at those buffs and thought, that doesn't matter, right? And I think everyone else did as well and went, that doesn't matter. Now, well, sometimes what can happen is that they can keep buffing these agents slightly and slightly and slightly over time, and then eventually they get really good and no one kind of notices, right? That could happen with Waylay if they just keep slightly tweaking Waylay. However, for now, Waylay is still coming in the help me category because, again, I mean, you know that Yoru's going to end up here somewhere. We've already got very good duelists, right? Like, even Jet isn't a bad option. Raze, Neon, both good options. You're a very good option, right? So it's like, what is your place in the game? Like, why would I play you? Realistically, over all these other agents that, you know, many people have many, many, many thousands of hours on and know and have mastered completely. Well, why would I play you who's new that I haven't mastered and also doesn't seem quite as useful? And then Yoru. And Yoru, I think you can argue, and I think this is a good argument, like what is the best agent out of these two? And I do think it's pretty close. I'm still going to argue overall, I'm going to argue for Omen. The reason I'm going to argue Omen over Yoru is because I think that Omen is just easier. I think Yoru, there are still, you know, quite a few examples out there of like Yoru teams not finding their way, right? Or not having the right comp around Yoru. Or sending in their Yoru and it just doesn't work, right? A lot of times you can end up looking very stupid on Yoru, right? Whereas I think Omen is just a little easier to just like, it's hard to play bad on Omen. You know, like if you're a decent controller player at this point in 2025, like you should be, every game should be a pretty good game because it's just Omen, you know. And as I say, he has an answer for everything. Now, if you want to argue Yoru over Omen, I would argue the ceiling of Yoru is higher than Omen. Yes, the ceiling of Yoru, I'd argue the ceiling of Yoru probably is S plus right now, to be honest. But I think average Yoru, I think is just S. So that is where my tier list right now lies. Interested to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. And with that, I will see you tomorrow. It's good to be back, and have a nice day.